ahead of our time schedule. And please, duo from Blast Futures, if you are here and if you are
hello.
perhaps ready, okay, are you ready to jump in the conversation 10 minutes earlier than you've been scheduled? If you are,
yeah, sure.
Okay,
sure.
just turn.
No worries.
We'll have more time to speak. Just turn your camera, turn your mic, and jump and give us your thoughts on what do you think about Blast, your project values and ideas, and so on and so forth. And then after you will have finished your speech, we will take a warm Q&A session. So.
Yep. All right. Okay. Fantastic. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yes, we are hearing. Would you like to turn your camera on, or you don't?
I am looking a little bit disheveled right now.
Okay, no problem. So let me turn off my camera.
Yeah.
Yes, we do hear you. Okay, so your stage is yours. Please talk. Anything you want to say?
All right. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So so first of all, like thanks for hosting the space. I think it's fantastic. Now that like everyone's been building on Blast for quite a while now. To just sort of sit back and see what everyone else is doing. And yeah, I guess a little bit about myself. My name is Duo. I'm the head of BD and marketing for Blast Futures. And unlike some of you other gigabrains in here, I have no idea how to code. It's something that like every time things get remotely technical, my brain switches off, and then I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna pass this on to the rest of the team. But nonetheless, I have been in the space for a long time, and just very, very stoked to be here sharing with you guys a little bit about BFX. So initially we came to Blast just sort of very, very sold on the idea of just a layer 2 with native yield. It's as far as sort of the calculus you present to a trader goes, it's a bit of a no-brainer that, hey, if the money that I've just left on the exchange is collecting 10% yield a year versus collecting dust everywhere else, it makes a lot of sense, and it's definitely a point of differentiation that I think, especially once time goes on, will eventually show its sort of will show its strength. And well, that's what we came for, and then we stayed for essentially the masterclass that Pac-Man has sort of shown us around how to design a really, really solid airdrop and how to use those airdrop incentives to really cement a very, very strong ecosystem. Like Blast right now is looking like a very, very mature ecosystem, with like numbers of dApps building on here that sort of, other chains that have been around for months and years, it took them that long to achieve. And yeah, and it's just been sort of like a pleasure being able to sort of leverage Blast's just very, very strong resources around its airdrop and how well they've done it, to sort of as sort of like a playing field, as sort of like a playground to see, okay, how can we use that to then incentivize our users? So that's pretty much sort of our thoughts on the Blast ecosystem so far. And in terms of what BFX is doing, essentially, we are we're a perps DEX, and we just aim to give the smoothest trading experience, lowest fees, and a really, really good vault to boot, that automatically, so all user deposits into what we call our DMM vault, dynamic AMM vault, all user deposits in that gets used to essentially market make for our exchange, which means on one end you have a very, very solid exchange, and on the other end we have a vault that basically takes the money from market makers, which is usually providing the liquidity on most exchanges. We're taking the profits that market makers would otherwise be earning, and then sharing that with our community who choose to stake in the vault. And yeah, and that's sort of, it's gotten off to a brilliant start in our opinion. And I think ultimately our goal is to give Hyperliquid a run for their money, because if we look in the perp dex space, the sort of like the number one and number two spot is kind of like the spotlight is on DYDX and Hyperliquid. In our opinion, we think DYDX is just sort of riding off of the high that it had on the last cycle, and Hyperliquid has really come up over the last few months, and our goal eventually is to challenge them for that number one spot, and we think that Blast is a great home to be doing that from.
Yeah. Well, am I correct that you have finished your talk, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let me look into, first of all, what's wrong with my, let me look into chats regarding questions. So guys, please don't hesitate to ask questions to Duo. I do see that we've got very short and clear thinking speakers today. They, like pitch guys, they don't understand the correctness and the importance of the timing. So if you finish earlier, that's better than if you are sort of late. That's a good way. Well, so question from Alex to Duo. So to Duo, first of all, you are not a developer. You don't know how to code, right?
Yep.
You are the marketing guys. We may discuss marketing questions over pre. Okay, so let me start with a question from Alex to you. Do you plan to invent other derivatives or futures only? That's a professional question.
That is a very good question. So we've actually flirted with the idea of quite a few different derivatives. So for example, we had the idea of potentially inventing sort of like a derivatives market where you can trade points. So people can essentially speculate on the value of points and gold, for example, and then all of those futures markets would just be closed. Would have all the positions closed out once the points in gold actually materializes into tokens, and we actually know the correct price. That could be something to sort of explore right now, especially since the points meta is so strong in the crypto space in terms of incentives. So yeah, like just we definitely have had sort of the freedom and the potential to sort of explore these ideas, but right now I think our main sort of focus is on getting our core product just sort of as smooth, as user friendly as possible, because we see sort of like the perp dex narrative. It's not as sexy as it was in DeFi summer. So I think we've sort of decided to take the approach of, hey, instead of trying to invent something new and sexy, when the spotlight isn't necessarily on perp dexes, we should rather just focus on just doing what all the other perp dexes do, except better, and ultimately sort of letting the product speak with itself, and just sort of looking at which perp dexes are getting the most success right now. We think that that's the best way to go about things in the space.
Well, our user Rostislav asks you to clarify when you're saying futures, like a kind of derivatives. You mean perps, do you?
Yes. Futures. So BFX sounded better than BPX. So yeah, that's why we said that's why we decided to call ourselves Blast Futures Exchange. So yes, Blast. So futures as in a perpetuals contract, correct?
Okay. Oh, so what are plans till the end of the year? What to expect? And by the way, how to start using your service? What steps should anyone want to take to start using your service?
Yeah, sure. I'll answer that question first. There's basically two ways to use our product. One is, if anyone wants to trade crypto on leverage, then BFX is the place to be. We have recently listed our 40th market, Pac Moon, and yeah, just basically I'll provide all the relevant links in the call afterward. And then basically you come in, deposit some USDB, and you can start trading. Yeah, it's simple as pie. So that's the first part, and then the second part would be if you want to deposit into our DMM vault. Then we also have that staking feature where you deposit USDB into our vault, and then that money is then used by our automated market maker to place asks and bids on our order book, and to essentially market make, and any profit that that market making generates then goes back to the people who have deposited in the vault.
Okay, great. Thanks for your answer. Another question from Alex, a DAO Envelop Genius member. He asks, why Blast suits the best for BFX products? Do you have difficulties with while building? So you do understand the question?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, of course. So I think while building, we have. I wouldn't say that building on Blast has caused any I guess difficulties in building that we wouldn't encounter elsewhere. And like that's just sort of like the typical the typical suite of issues that any dev team will eventually face. So in terms of Blast being very solid for BFX product, well, it's once again the native yield component of Blast just makes a lot of sense because for a vault, it means that any amount of funds that you put in there on top of the very nice yields that our DMM vault generates, which right now is around, I believe, around 25% APY. On top of that, you also get 10% for absolutely nothing. And same with your trading balance. If so, any funds that are currently in our exchange, that you are trading with, but isn't being used to actively margin a position, that's also collecting native yield. So essentially, an exchange is where a lot of people park a lot of money, and it makes sense for that money to be compounding, for absolutely nothing. So that's why we think Blast makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think as I see your colleague Jan has dropped a link to bfx.trade. Am I getting right that start using BFX trading, we to follow this link and do whatever it asks us to do?
Yeah. So that link takes you straight to our straight to our website. And you just, if anyone wants to have a play around, connect wallet, deposit USDB, you are good to go. Yeah. So I see the question. In which way do you avoid / fix liquidity
Definitely, right.
fragmentation? Yeah. I just want to clarify. What do you mean exactly by liquidity fragmentation?
Rostislav, please clarify if you can question what is liquidity fragmentation? This is the controversial, not so understandable, easy understandable term. I'm not a specialist in this trading options and features at all, but let us hope that our viewers are more experienced. Well, while Rostislav is, he has clarified, I mean, order book-based perpetual DEX often have shallow liquidity.
Yes. Okay. Sure. Yeah. That's a fantastic question. It depends on the market. There are probably three main ways that we provide extremely deep liquidity, probably the best on Blast, and really high up there across all of the perp dexes. Number one is our DMM vaults have an incredible amount of capital efficiency. So for example, the other vault that is often used by perp dexes to provide liquidity to their books is would be elixirs. Would be elixir vaults, and DMM is about 100 times more efficient than elixir's vault when it comes to taking the funds that are in the vaults and then putting them up as orders on an order book. And right now the DMM vault has around 20 million USDB in it, and with that we're able to provide we're able to provide huge amounts of liquidity to most of the more larger cap markets like Bitcoin, ETH, Sol. I don't think you're going to find order books much deeper anywhere else. And for a while this week we actually had deeper liquidity on our books on Bitcoin than Binance had. So the DMM is essentially our sort of bread and butter in sort of providing a huge amount of liquidity to all the markets where there is a big demand for it, and also we have a lot of control over it too. So for example, if hey, we see a lot of traders that say let's say WIF decides to pump 20-30% in a day, and suddenly traders are trading gigantic clips on WIF, then we can just very quickly just turn up the liquidity that the DMM allocates to that market. So that's the first thing. The second part would be the fact that our our sister exchange RabbitX, we're able to essentially use our in-house tech that allows our order books to sync up with each other. So us and RabbitX, we share the same order book, and by doing that, so RabbitX has some more traditional market makers on it providing liquidity. So any sort of shortcomings in the DMM can be patched up by the manual sort of market maker, not manual market makers, but the more traditional market makers on the RabbitX end of things, and this fixes one of the I suppose issues that Hyperliquid has, because their entire exchange has liquidity provided to it by the Hyperliquid vaults. So if anything happens, that's why you get those gigantic scam wicks. For us, we don't have that issue because if there is sort of like a momentary lapse in the DMM, any of that ends up being swallowed up by the traditional market makers. And finally, for longer tail assets, so for example, PAC. For example, it's very volatile. It has a very small market cap, therefore, providing liquidity to it from a market maker's perspective is very, very scary. So this is another sort of big benefit of building on Blast. Well, hey, look, like there's all these Blast points and Blast gold lying around. We're able to incentivize people to essentially place a bunch of limit orders on the pack market and reward those users for placing that, and that's how we can then once again selectively supplement certain markets with liquidity that market makers may deem too risky.
Well, great answer. I just think that you pretty love your job, not less that you are not a developer. Yeah, a lot of speakers are also developers. And I love to talk to marketers in Web3. May I ask you a question beyond the scope of today's conversation regarding marketing and Web3. How do you see in general, how it differs from marketing in traditional, let's say, Web2 or even non-web initiative? And how to become a good marketer or a good CMO in Web3? This is the most painful question that I've ever met, talking with everyone in Web3. So find a good CMO is perhaps the most hardest task to find the great developer, but how to be a good CMO, for your recommendations and your advices for all who are involved in Web3 marketing in any projects.
Yeah. That's a great question, and I like to think that at the end of the day, like marketing is all about capturing mind share, it's about capturing mind share, capturing social capital, and that leads to sort of more confidence from bigger players to deploy the capital on your platform. The main difference, I think, in Web3 is you can be as creative as you want, you can be as provocative as you want, and unless if you have a very, very backward team, which isn't the case for 99.99% of protocols out there, as long as you can capture people's attention, it's like you have done your job. That's the pro, and I think the con is, as a result of that, there is a huge amount of noise, and you have to sort of cut through all of that noise with something that has enough substance, but at the same time is also out there enough to get people's attention. So yeah, I find it a very interesting sort of balancing act. I spend like hours on Twitter every single day, just slowly soaking it up, and also like the hottest narrative, the wins, all of these can just it can blow in one direction today and a totally different one tomorrow, and it really it rewards anyone who is plugged in and early. That is the case for developers, creating something that fills a particular need. The first to do it usually reaps the most rewards. For investment opportunities, if you're the first to get into to something great, then obviously you make the most money. And I think that is also especially relevant. The latest meme, the one thing that everyone is talking about. That's how you capture the largest amount of mind share, the largest amount of social capital. So yeah, so that I think is what's different about about Web3 marketing, whereas Web2 marketing, sort of the playbook has been it's been around forever, and you essentially just do what everyone else is doing, and you're pretty much fine. So that's what I would say the main difference is.
Definitely, this is the field where everyone should, if everyone involved in Web3 marketing, it has to learn on an everyday basis. And by the way, last year I read a book from by Amanda Cassatt, the famous Web3 marketer, which is called Web3 Marketing Book. I don't know if you're familiar with that. If you are, do you find this book completely useful or not completely, or not just this book, but learn from any source you may find from different good marketers, from all the stuff you may learn because you are the qualified person.
So for me, I've read snippets. I've read snippets from it. But like for us and the book that I would recommend to any sort of like to any sort of marketer or even product guy, is the book Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. So Rory Sutherland was the vice chairman at Alchemy, the very famous marketing the very famous marketing company, and so like we at the office we keep talking about, hey, we have to find the cucumber sandwich. We have to find the cucumber sandwich, and what the cucumber sandwich is. So in that book, one anecdote that he says is there's I forgot which airline it is, but anyways, this airline just spent hundreds of $millions upgrading all of their upgrading all of their jets. So it says that it spent this gigantic investment, and then their marketing team went and did a gigantic marketing campaign about like how the new jets that they upgraded to are like faster, more fuel efficient, safer, blah 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 blah. And then it turned out that and then it barely boosted their sales at all.
Well, dude, I love your answer. I just see that you're completely devoted to your marketing job. I love to talk to people who are absolutely devoted. Amazing. We have delivered a great talk today, going far beyond Blast and programmable assets and so on and so forth. So I'm very happy that we have you as a friend. I'm happy that we've had you as a speaker today. Thank you very much for your speech. We'll be following your success. This has been Duo from Blast Futures, link in the chat. So thank you very much and have a good day.